Hey YouTube, this is Jupiter James here with another video. Welcome back to my channel where I do what I want, when I want, how I want. Today we're gonna get into the third house of astrology. The third house is governed by Gemini. It is a very communicative, expressive, mental house. It is the house of communication. It is the house of also the family role that you played in your home. So amongst your siblings, this the role you played in your upbringing. So even if you were an only child, again, this is kind of the dynamic that you were put into, depending on the sign that's in the third house of what you were in. So let's get into it. So first sign of astrology is going to be Aries. Aries in third house is going to be a sign that growing up or amongst your siblings, you were probably very competitive. You probably were always fighting your sisters and your brothers. Or this could also lend to, if you were an only child, you were definitely just like, you probably were an only child. Like if you have Aries, I say this a lot with Aries in third house, you were probably an only child because Aries is a very individualistic sign. So there was probably no one to compete with. You fight to get your point across. You probably are always someone who is fighting to get their point across, or fighting to have a say or an opinion in said group, wherever you are in life. You probably will fight for your opinions. You will fight to express yourself. You probably want to be the first to express yourself, and you probably you're probably a motivational speaker. You're someone who is very like ignite fire when it comes to your communication and your mental processes on like fiery things. So this could lend to motivational speaking or debate teams or lawyer or just in your day-to-day, what the situations you find yourself in is that you have to assert yourself vocally in order to get your point across, or fight to get your point across. And that is Aries in the third house. That's Aries in the third house. Taurus in the third house is going to be someone who thinks about safety and security and stability. You probably are a very down-to-earth communicator. You probably are never talking about things that are too abstract or that are not gonna happen in the near future. You're probably someone who is always, you probably talk about food a lot. You love food. Like you probably talk and think about food a lot. You think about money a lot. You talk about money a lot. Amongst your childhood and growing up, you were probably the brother or sister who people or your siblings came to be dependable, or can I borrow $1? Or someone who they would come to depend on. You were someone who was very stable in your upbringing, in your childhood, amongst your siblings. You were that type of sibling. And in your adult life or in your now life, you're just someone who is a very stable thinker, very grounded. You're probably very stubborn in your thought process. When you communicate normally, like nothing too abstract, too crazy. People can understand what you put down. It's not too far out. It's very grounded. That is Taurus in the third house. Moving on to the third sign of Gemini. So Gemini is gonna feel at home in its own house of communication and ideas and intellect. So this is going to be someone who is very adept, very smart, very intellectual. They're going to be someone who is always talking. They're going to be someone who's always communicating, who is very good at those things. In their childhood and upbringing, they were the brother or sister who probably knew everyone's secrets. They were probably like the middle child who always knew everyone's secrets. They knew the mom's secrets, the dad's secrets, the sister's secrets, and everyone was telling them secrets and information. You probably are someone who knows all the information in your family. Like people come to you and they're like, hey, so what's going on? Like, can you talk to so-and-so? Like, can you do this? Can you do that? You're You're that. You're like, you're Hermes. You're Hermes. Does anyone know who Hermes with the wings on his shoes? You were the Hermes of the family, you know? If anyone knows what I mean by that, put a link below. You're Hermes. You were Hermes, you know? You are probably someone who wrote down a lot of things a lot. Like you probably had a diary growing up. And you probably wanted people to know it. You probably wanted people to know you had a diary so that they could read it, so that you could communicate even more. You're like, yes, you're that. Okay, so Cancer in the 3rd house is going to be someone who communicates and thinks about their family a lot. You're probably a very nurturing, healing communicator. When you communicate, you probably heal people, or you communicate very lovingly and very sweet and very nice. Like you're like a mother figure. You probably talk a lot about your mom, or you communicate a lot with your mom. You are also probably very psychic, if that makes sense, because Cancer is a very psychic sign, and wherever Cancer is, especially if it's in the mind, you probably know what people are thinking. More than anyone, you know what people are thinking, and you can feel it. Like you can feel what people are thinking. That's what it is. You also, growing up, were probably the brother or sister that was like a second mom or dad. Like you probably took on a mothering role in your family, maybe because your actual mom or dad was like not present and you probably had to take on that role. But more than likely, you were probably someone who you're taking care. You probably cooked your brother and sister dinner. You probably were the one to tuck them in at night. You were probably the one that walked them home from school and protect them from danger. You were probably someone who was instilling and talking. Yes, you're probably someone in your childhood who was instilling motherly advice to your siblings growing up. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's the one. That's Cancer in the 3rd house. Very mothering, very nurturing, but when it comes to your communication and the way you think, you're always thinking about family, you're thinking about nurturing, you're thinking about healing, you're thinking about things like that. So Leo in the 3rd house is going to be someone who they say what they're thinking. You will know what they're thinking. You will know, and even if you don't want to know, it's TMI, they're still going to let you know exactly how they feel, what's going on, what they've been through, what's ailing them, what's getting on their nerves, how much money they have, where I need to go, what I need to do, what I need to eat, how much I slept last night. They're like that. They will express exactly what's going on in their mind. You don't really have to fight too hard. You probably are someone that people tell you that, hey, like you don't need to tell that much. Like you don't, like that. Like they're just like, hey. We get it. Like that's Leo in the 3rd house. Remember, wherever Leo is, it's big, it's bold, it's out there. And this is the 3rd house of communication and mental process. So that person's gonna be big, bold, and out there in their communication and in their mental process. They probably get a lot of attention when they speak or communicate for whatever reason. It could be because they're loud. It could be because of the topics that they choose. Like they get a lot of attention from the things that they think about and are talking about. So, and in your childhood dynamic amongst your siblings, it was probably all about you. It's all about you. It's me first and then everyone else. Mom, pick me, I'm the favorite. Like that's Leo in the 3rd house. So Virgo in the 3rd house is going to be someone who is of service. They're probably always thinking about how to help people in situations, and they just want to help. They want to make the situation better, whatever the situation is. In their mind, they want to turn chaos into order. They want to take whatever is wrong and make it right. And that could be whatever they are just thinking about. They always want to take whatever's wrong, make it right. And they're probably very analytical in the mental process, very like fact-based, very smart. They're probably very smart. Yeah, very smart. They're probably like genius level smart. Yeah. in their family dynamic, in their childhood dynamic, they're probably the brother or sister who is of service to the family. They are someone who is meant to take care of the family. They're meant to be of service to the family. They're the brother or sister who is taking the mom on errands. They're the ones helping the dad out. They're the one helping the little brother with the homework. They are the one teaching the little brother or little sister what needs to be taught. Like, they are of service. They are there to help their family dynamic. Like, they're like the secretary, if that makes sense, but only because they are smart and they are capable. Like, they're like the family's personal assistant. Like, they know where everything is. They know where all the spreadsheets are. They know where all the, like, if anything were to go wrong, the family would go to the Virgo in the third house person, because they would need help and they would know how to help and make chaos into order. Yeah, so Libra in the third house is going to be someone who is always thinking about beauty, aesthetics. They probably love fashion. They're probably always thinking about fashion or clothing or aesthetically beautiful things. They are also someone who, like, this one's a doozy. No, it's not. I'm just kidding. They're always thinking about leveling the playing field. They want to make things balanced and equal. They're probably a very fair person. They are always communicating very lovingly. Like, whatever they say or whatever they think about, it's never like mean. Like, even if it is mean, they'll never let you know that. Like, they'll go to their grave before they're ever mean or come off mean or talk mean. Like, it's just not in their way. Their voice, their speech is probably like sweet as sugar, and like when they are communicating, they are someone who is very fair. So this is like the placement of a judge or someone who has the final decision, or an HR worker, or someone who is, you know, has the final decision based on what's wrong and what's right, and they're communicating it. A counselor, a therapist, yeah, like that's Libra in the third house. Wherever Libra is, Libra seeks balance and fairness. And so it's in the house of communication and mental process. So, okay, so anyway, Scorpio in the third house is gonna be someone who you won't ever know what they're thinking. They're very mysterious with their thinking. They probably don't talk a lot. They only talk unless it really needs, like, unless they really need to talk, they will, but they're not someone who's talking all the time. They keep what they think and what they want to say to themselves unless need be. When they do talk and when they do communicate, it holds a lot of power. Like, there's someone who, they don't say much, but when they do say something, it's powerful, it lands, and everyone goes, and they listen, you know? That's Scorpio. It holds a lot of power and a lot of depth and a lot of secrecy. So look, I'm an astrologer and I don't even know what Scorpio in the third house is thinking. Like, the world may never know. Like, I don't know. And that's literally the point. We don't know what that person is thinking. Okay, so Sagittarius in the third house is gonna be someone who is always thinking about traveling. They're thinking about truth, philosophy. They probably were the best student. Oh, sorry. Going back to Scorpio in the childhood, they were probably someone that the family didn't know where or who this child was probably very, growing up, this child was probably very secretive, very like to themselves, very recluse, very like, they're like the teenage child that's up in the room blasting actually not even blasting music, just up in the room quiet. Like, we don't know what's going on with little Jimmy. We don't know. He seems okay. But anyway, going to Sagittarius in the fourth house. Fourth house Sagittarius is going to be someone who is always talking about philosophy, talking about the things that they've learned. They are probably a teacher. They're probably someone who is a philosopher. There's someone who is talking about different lands and different cultures and health and fitness. And when they do talk, they're probably like a teacher, someone who teaches and is always thinking about those things. They probably know you're lying, and they'll probably let you know you're lying. You're lying. They probably can't tell a lie. They probably can't help but to let you know what the truth is. Like, even if it hurts your feelings, they would rather it hurt your feelings than to lie. Literally. That's Sag, and they can't help it. They can't. Like, they can't. It's not in them. They can't do it. So wherever Sagittarius in the third house is, they're going to be that person. When in the third house, I mean, when it comes to the childhood of a person with Sagittarius in the third house, this person was probably the sibling that was always traveling. Maybe they had a basketball game and they were on a tour and they were never home. Or they were probably a very, very, very old soul, like could probably teach the mom something. Like, they were probably that very studious, smart, philosophical, traveling kid. Like, yeah. All right, so moving on to Capricorn. Capricorn in the third house is going to be a very a sign that thinks about. It's going to be a sign that thinks about success and building and how do I get that top spot? And they're probably always talking about and communicating things of like, how do I get the money? Where's the money? Where's the goal? Where's the success? If you're not talking to me about that, you're wasting my time and I gotta go. See ya. Like, I gotta go. Like, they're always thinking about how to get themselves in the top spot, into that room where the big players are. How do I build? How do I get what's mine? Like, they are that sign. So in their childhood dynamic, they were probably someone, again, who was probably very dependable. But they were a child who was probably very rich growing up. They were probably someone who the parents or the siblings, they were probably the successful sibling. Like, when you go home to the family reunions and you walk in, you're like the rich auntie. Like, you're like that auntie. Like, you're that aunt or uncle who's like rich. Like, you made it. Like, you're that dynamic in your childhood sibling upbringing. You're like the success. You were the straight A student. Like, you were the kid who always brought home great grades on your report card. You're like that student. Like, you were the achiever. You were the valedictorian of your household. Like, you were that growing up. Yeah. Aquarius in the third house is going to be someone who is always thinking about, talking about, innovating something that will help the world. There's someone who prides themselves on being a leader and how to help the world. They probably have very scientific, far out mental process. Like, they would rather not even talk to you because you just won't get it. Like, they will let you know when it's time to let you know, and by the time you know, it'll be out in the world and it'll be saving the world. Is that, like, they already know you will never get it, and they're gonna go and do it. You know, like, they're like that. Like, that's where their mind is. It's like, they were also like that with their siblings. They probably were very detached from their siblings, just because, not that they didn't love them, they probably do love them, but their mind is just on so much greater and bigger that they couldn't, it makes them detached emotionally, detached from the family. Like, they were, yeah, they're very, wherever Aquarius is, it makes them detached because their mind, or the theme is that it's on the collective. So when it comes to their family upbringing, they were probably very detached from their family. Even if they were in the same room, this person probably had the headphones in, reading a book, on an iPad, on a phone, looking at how to save the world and what invention I'm gonna make to do so. Like, they're that. Like, that's that's Aquarius in the 3rd house. They're always talking and communicating about far out things, thinking about far out things, but more so because they are trying to build something or offer something to the world or think about how to help the world. All right, so Pisces, last sign, is gonna be in the 3rd house. Remember, wherever Pisces is, it brings that very spiritual, nebulous, woo-woo, far out, detached, head in the clouds theme to the 3rd house. So the 3rd house is of the mind, it is of the communication, it is of the mental process. So when we merge those two things together, that means that this person, probably their head, their mind is gone. They're probably thinking about spirit, they're thinking about where that at. They are someone, when they do communicate, people can't really grasp it. They're like, what did you just say? Like, huh? What? Okay, anyway, like, because what they talk about and what they're thinking about is just so abstract and so out there that they're just like, what? Huh? So they probably just go and spark up, you know? Yeah, so that growing up as a child, they were probably the kid who was probably very creative and very loved acting, loved singing, loved the arts, was probably very rebellious, probably got into drugs and alcohol very early in age. They were probably very detached, a lot like Aquarius, they're detached as well. But see, Aquarius is detached because their mind is on humanity. Pisces is detached because their mind is on spirit. Yeah, that's why. Both signs are detached. One is looking at the ground, one is looking up at the sky. Pisces is looking up at the sky. That's why they are detached. So they were probably the kid that no one understood because they were probably in the Glee Club. Like, they were probably like at Glee Club. You know, like, where's my son? I don't know, but he's at Glee Club. Like that, like, cause their head is in fantasy. Like, their head is in a, and then when you would speak to them and they would say something, you'd be like, huh? Can you say that again? Like, what are you even talking about, little Jimmy? So yes, that is the zodiac wheel. That is the 12 signs through Gemini, the 12 signs through the 3rd house. And if anyone needs a birth chart reading for love, career, destiny, when you'll find a lover, when you'll find a soulmate, what's gonna happen for you this year, drop me a like, a subscribe, and a reach out to my info below, and I would be happy to help you with whatever you're going through. My name is Jupiter James, and I will see y'all on the flip side. Have a good one.